The Dutch king Willem-Alexander has apologized for his country's role in slavery. The Netherlands is commemorating the anniversary of the country's abolition of slavery. Speculation had been growing that the king would offer an apology on behalf of the royal house. Last year, Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte apologized for the country's involvement in the slave trade and slavery, but stopped short of offering compensation to descendants of enslaved people. Now, this is a part of a wider reckoning with colonial histories in the West that have been spurred in recent years by the Black Lives Matter movement. DW correspondent Christine Mhundwa has more.
To have a conversation about...
It's a beautiful summer day in Amsterdam, and Jennifer Tosh is taking us on a tour to see symbols of Dutch colonial history in the city.
The gable stone shows a man named Cornelius Tromp. He was an admiral of the Dutch fleet, and what's more significant is this black servant that's actually in the gable stone. He is holding the helmet of Tromp. We know he was a real person, even though we don't know his name. This is a replica of an 18th century cargo ship. This was a cargo ship of goods, but the same type of ship could be converted to carrying people as the cargo. 700 people could be transported in a ship this size.
Over centuries, Dutch merchants bought and shipped about 600,000 enslaved people from Africa during the transatlantic slave trade. They were taken to Caribbean colonies like Suriname, where Hans Christian Plus van Amstel has traced his family tree back to a slave owner in the colony.
It's an ugly period. And when you read the letters and the history of your own family, the central figure was Egbert van Emden. He owned 2 plantations, and together he had, I think, about 250 slaves.
That was in the 19th century. But the story is part of an era that began in the 17th century, when the Netherlands was a global power and likely the richest country in the world at the time. The Dutch have historically referred to this period as the Golden Age. Now the use of this term is being debated because its description doesn't address the violence and brutality enslaved people endured in Dutch colonies.
There are different stories. It's not a golden age we are looking back to. And it is a period with the best of times and the worst of times. Best of times for a few people and the worst of times for many people.
Adding this context to Dutch history is also the objective of a new permanent exhibition in the Tropen Museum in Amsterdam.
The exhibition is called Our Colonial Inheritance. We think that you cannot really understand current day society if you don't understand colonialism and how those structures worked. We believe that colonialism shaped the world that we live in today.
And that's true for people here. Many of the residents in this working-class borough of Amsterdam have roots in former colonies. Generations later, inequality still shapes their lives.
We held meetings here in Amsterdam Southeast, specifically talking about what do we need when we talk about moving forward. And even if we receive an apology from the king, what does it mean? What people told us that apology from the king will be a first step, and what people really need is their children to have a professional education, their children to get a job.
The Dutch were one of the last European nations to abolish slavery, and the king's apology comes later than that of other former colonial powers. The question is, what comes next?
Yeah, what indeed? Our correspondent Lucia Schulten is in Amsterdam, where she followed the king's speech. Lucia, what did you make of what the king had to say?
Yes, first of all, let us state what the king actually said. So he was standing here in front of also a relatively big crowd of people that came here to listen to him, and he said, I stand here as your king, as representative of the state, and I do apologize today myself. He said he felt personally involved, and to understand this you might have to also look at the role that the Dutch crown was playing in the slavery and the slave trade. There has been reports of researchers that said that nowadays they would have earned what would be comparable to roughly 550 million euros. So just to understand what we heard there.
Right.
And then his apology was met by a lot of applause and
Right. I mean, he's not the first leader in the West, if you want, who addresses this issue and who apologizes for it. Why is the Netherlands confronting its colonial past now?
Yeah, today marks 150 years of abolishment of slavery, and to understand, and therefore this is also the occasion for the speech. People here have been telling me that in the last couple of years there was an awareness raise of Dutch colonial history, but also what happened after colonialism, and people are talking more about it. And I think you can really say it also comes because of the Black Lives Matter movements, and then there has been a raise of awareness in a lot of European countries, also here in the Netherlands. And now people are telling me here it is the beginning, and people really start to think a bit more about what happened, learn it in schools, and it is only the beginning of a long process of healing.
Now, you said, Lucia, that people there who attended this event were applauding, but what about the broader society there? How do the Dutch in general feel about the way the officials there are dealing with the issue?
Yeah, I've been asking people if what the government should do, and everyone here said they should do more. And there's, of course, a discussion that is lying under this, which is the question of reparations. A lot of people here are saying that there should be reparations for what has happened because of the wealth of the Netherlands nowadays, which also goes back to these events. But then there are other people saying, well, who do you give the money to? It would be very complicated. So, as I have said, this is only the beginning of a process. This is what everyone has been saying here. Also, the Dutch king has been saying that he would invite everyone to create a world where they live together without discrimination, and that the healing can start.
All right, DW correspondent Lucia Schulten there reporting for us from Amsterdam. Thank you so much.
Thank you.